and welcome to Front Row Racing's track guide for the majestic Spa-Francorchamps. A fantastic racetrack, one of the originals. Very high speed, some fantastic corners and some rather nasty little corners as well. And that last chicane being one of them. The old bus stop was a much more beautiful set of corners. Even this first turn's been altered a lot. You used to go up right up against the wall, but nowadays we don't go anywhere near it, or at least you shouldn't be going anywhere near it anyway. So, I'm from Row Racing DP. Our good friend Ted Cravsticks, he's going to be with us again, pointing out the obvious, the not so obvious, and the downright blatant. So Spa, what do we need to know about this track? Well, for a start, the old original track used to go off up that way, into the woods. But other than that, what do you need round here? You need a setup that's going to allow you to turn in and avoid having moments like I had there. But you also obviously need high speed, so you need to find that balance between speed and downforce. Because to a degree, yes, you need the speed, but at the same time, if you can't make it through Sector 2 at a decent rate of knots, then there's no point having the fastest car on the grid, because Sector 2 is where a lot of time can be won or lost. Rhythm and carrying speed, or rhythm will help you carry speed round here, and you do need to carry the speed through the corners. It's very easy to brake too much and slow down too much. We also need to be brave around this track. Brave, confident and smoothly aggressive to get a good lap time out of this track. Now as we approach the final chicane, obviously we're going to do our usual thing with a track guide. This first lap, just a warm up. The next lap is going to be the guide lap, where we do a detailed corner by corner guide, giving you my hints, tips and helping out those people who feel they may be struggling. I mean, the track guides are aimed at people who are struggling rather than those that are already really fast. But there we go. Right, I was just checking something there. Okay, so turn 1. It's a hairpin, but it's a very, very easy corner. A very easy corner, this. However, a lot of people struggle on it. Yes, it's a hairpin. Yes, it's not the easiest of corners in the world, but it's so easy to get right that getting it wrong, I mean, when I say getting it wrong, there's a big difference between your average user getting a corner wrong and your top drivers getting a corner wrong. Your average user getting a corner wrong is missing the braking point by a mile, missing the apex by a mile, and getting loads of wheel spin on the exit. A top user's getting the corner wrong is missing the apex by half an inch. And yes, that may seem anal, but it's true. All of the top drivers are like that. They know exactly pretty much where they've lost a bit of time. And obviously, just like in real life, it's not very often you're going to get that perfect lap again and again and again and again and again. And okay, this is a game, so you've more chance of doing it than in real life, but there is a difference there. So anyway, turn 1. How do we do it? It's dead simple. As you approach turn 1, there's a white line that goes across the circuit. Just here. This is your end of the line braking point. This needs to be the latest that you are on the brakes, because if you brake after this, you're either not going to make the apex of the corner, or if you do, you're going too slow. So make sure you're braking before this white line. Now you may not see me go down the gears to start off with, but I am braking at this white line. We brake hard, get it down the gears, heading down into second gear for this corner. We're going to use all the road as per usual, so we're all the way over to the left hand side of the circuit, and then it's a case of where do we turn in. And as I've mentioned that, I've done it again. For some reason the steering wheel is slightly cocked to the left. Now, it's not a glitch. I think I've actually worked out what it is that's caused it, because it happened on the last track guide. Basically, when I have exited the replay, I have then turned unplugged my wheel so I can do this guide. However, the wheel was turned, so I think that's what is causing the slightly tilted steering wheel. So don't focus too much about the fact that the steering wheel is tilting slightly to the left in a straight line, because we're more interested in braking points and turning points. So where is your turning point for turn 1? Well, actually it's quite simple. It's a little bit like Monza. It's a little helping trick for you. There's a shadow just here. This here is your turning point. Now obviously if you're racing in the rain, you're probably not going to get that shadow. If you need something else to go off, well, you can always try this. There's a big bloody house up there. As that's going out your screen, that's your turning point. At the end of the day, this shadow is pretty much from next to the house. So turning point at the shadow, and we'll start turning in. Now we do want to get as close to this curb as possible, ideally a couple of wheels on it. So don't be afraid of turning in aggressively. Get the car turned in and be patient on the throttle around the first half of this corner. If you can hold a bit on, it'll help you out. Now I've missed the apex of the corner by ½ an inch, so I know I've lost a little bit of time here. If you can get on that curb, then you can get the corner beautifully. The curb can help you around the corner, but don't try apexing the wall. Now on the exit of the corner, it's a tricky one because you need to be aggressive, but you also need to be cautious, because if you haven't got the grip there, when you put the throttle on as the steering comes off, you're just going to get wheel spin. And if you get wheel spin in second, you're more than likely going to get a wheel spin in third. So you need to be aggressive here, but you need to make sure that your car's got the grip to allow you to be aggressive. So if you are struggling a little bit with this turn 1, focus on how much speed you carry through the corner and how you're accelerating out of the corner. Ideally, you want to be a lot on the throttle. Now, if you are spinning up the wheels, then you're going to need to work on how much throttle you use mid-corner or your setup. What you don't want to do is use less throttle to avoid wheel spin, because you'll just lose a bag load of time. Okay, so here we go, full speed. You see, I'm on the throttle now, I'm hard on the throttle. No wheel spin. One thing to quickly point out there, watch what happens with third gear. Let's get it back to where we're in second gear. Come on, we'll get there. Right, okay, we're in second gear. We're going to take it up to about 80-ish mile an hour and then change into third. Okay, 72. But now you'll see the revs have picked up and dropped off again. So okay, we've got a tiny little bit of wheel spin, but that's not a problem because we're going now. We've got the grip. But now you'll see that the rev lights are all the way up to the blue. It's telling me to upshift. However, if I do that now, I'm going to bog it down in fourth gear. We're only doing 87 mile an hour. So extend third gear up to about 115 if you can. You see now we're at 100, it's still telling me to change gear. Now we're getting up to 110, 115, and we've just gone to fourth gear. So we're doing an additional, what, 20 odd mile an hour before we change gear. That can make a massive difference. If I'd have upshift to fourth when the blue lights told me to, I'd have bogged it down and lost time. So on a couple of corners around this circuit, don't be afraid of extending third gear. Excuse me. Okay, now we're going to head to the famous corner, Eau Rouge, a fantastic corner. And I mean, it's not the most difficult of corners to do. However, there's ways to do it fast or quicker than maybe you already are. And it's, for me, it's straight lines. So for example, here we are heading in a straight line straight towards that service road up here. And then what we're going to do, part way down the road, we're going to turn slightly and go for a straight line over the apex of the corner, which will take us to the apex of this right-hander. So straight lines down this bit can help you take speed. Now I'm going to play it at full speed, and then I'm just going to quickly note something afterwards when we go through and look at it again. So straight line, turn slightly, straight line, easy right, easy left, and away we go. Excuse me. Now what I want to point out to you is what gear to use through this corner. Now obviously at this point I'm in 7th gear doing 188 mile an hour, knocked the one off and we're back to the future. yeah, we're in 7th gear and we're heading to the corner doing quite a nice speed. Now I would say it doesn't really matter what setup you've got, you're more than likely going to be heading at this corner in 7th gear. We're now doing 193 mile an hour. But again, the blue lights are flashing telling me to upshift, but I'm not going to. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to hold 7th gear all the way through to see what speed minimum speed we reach through Eau Rouge. So we see it's dropped down now, 192, 191, 190. Revs drop a little, pick back up, and now we're actually going to pick up speed again. So our minimum speed is 190, and we're held 7th gear all the way through the corner. So 191, 192, and I'm actually going to hold the speed until we get up to hold 7th until we get up to 195 mile an hour. There we go. So minimum corner speed through Eau Rouge was 190 mile an hour. Now on the next lap, the late braking lap, I'm actually going to upshift as the game tells me to through Eau Rouge, and we'll have a look at what mid corner speed I actually get there, because it makes a big difference. Okay, so Eau Rouge, very simple, don't need to cut corners through there, it's a really easy corner to get right. Okay, now we head down the Kemmel Straight, I believe it's called, into a very tricky couple of corners. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to let it play through at full speed for the next 3 corners, and then I'm going to pull it back. And the reason I'm going to let it go through the 3 corners is because obviously this right-hander coming up leads into the left-hander, and that left-hander leads into the right-hander. This is your first rhythm part of the track. Now I will admit I don't get it absolutely spot on, but I can still tell you what we need to do through there. So full speed, here we go. And there we go. Okay, we've had a little bit of a twitch on the exit, but I did say we don't do it absolutely perfectly. Right, okay, so let's go back. Now, if you're wondering why I showed you that without talking, that's because I wanted you to be able to listen to the engine, because your engine, what noise is coming out of it, obviously shows what you're doing with your throttle. And like I said, this is a rhythm section, so what you do with your throttle through here will fully dictate what kind of speed you're going to carry through this section of corners. Okay, in races, especially 50% or higher, when you're approaching this corner, 100 meter marker board, that's your braking point. If you brake at the 100 meter marker board, you will make these corners every single time. You may not have to brake very hard, but you will make them every single time, especially if you've got DRS or you've been slipstreaming someone. Now in qualifying, you can go a bit beyond the 100 metres, 75 metres being about the best. See when I drop down the gears, there we go. So about 75 metres. Now to be honest, there isn't really much to say to you here. Right, this is at 75 metres. You're going to have to guess it. This corner's going to come all down to talent and ability when it comes to the braking zone in qualifying and the races. But like I say, in the race, if you brake at 100 metres, you'll make it fine. Okay, then we're on to the turning point. Well, the turning point's actually quite an easy one. At the end of this curb on the left hand side, you'll see we're using all of the road and a little bit of curb. At the end of this curb, we can start turning in. See, we're just moving across now, but now we really start turning the car in. Ideally, we want to use this apex, and at this point, apex curb even, at this point I'm off throttle a little bit to make sure that I can get 2 wheels on this apex curb. You want to use this curb. It can help you gain time. Then as we exit that curb, little bit of throttle, but then ideally we want to ease off a tiny bit at this point. As you may have seen, the revs have just dropped a little bit. Yep. So we ease off a little bit so we can get it turned in for this left-hander. Again, using a little bit of curb. Don't take too much though, it'll kick the back end out. And then on the exit of this corner, sacrifice the exit. We don't want to go all the way over to the right hand side of the circuit because of the corner that's coming up. Now the reason I've told you to do these two corners like I have done is because basically it will set your car up in a position like mine is now. So we can get over to the left hand side of the track. We're still in third gear. Now I said I messed this corner up a little bit, and I do, and that's because ideally at this point I would now go to fourth gear. I haven't done it because I was trying a few different things, but you can still see what we're trying to do. Now the reason we've done the ease off between the right hander and the left hander is two reasons. One, so we can get our car in this position, and two, if you don't do the ease off, you'll end up doing it around this corner. And you do not want to be off throttle around this corner. You want to be flat out through this right hander. And by doing the ease off between the corners allows us to be able to do it because of where the car's positioned. So we can now work our way over to the left hand side of the track. As soon as we get up to the curb, we can turn it in for the right hander. We've now gone to fourth gear, and now we're going to drive through this corner hard and fast. Excuse me. And this is where you can gain a lot of time, and I gain a lot of time over people that try taking too much speed through the right left. Take these corners fast and aggressive, or this one fast and aggressive. Okay, I've upshifted to fifth now, and we have the little bit of oversteer, but it's not a problem. A little bit of drifting action isn't too much of a problem. However, had I taken the corner at full speed, then we would be exiting the corner on the curb on the left hand side, because that's where you want to be. You want to be exiting the corner just here. I would ideally be another car widths over. That again is lap time. Okay, so quickly go back and we'll watch it through one more time at full speed so that you can again listen to the engine. So off throttle, on throttle, off throttle, sacrifice the exit. Now we drive it hard, and now into my bogey corner. I hate this corner with a passion. I know a lot of people don't like that gravel has been removed from a lot of corners on F1 tracks, but if I'm honest, this is a corner where I'm glad it has been, because I hate this corner. And the annoying thing is there's a really simple process to this corner, but it's just so easy to get it wrong. It's so easy to just think I'll push it a little bit further and end up going slow. And the process is as simple as this. Brake hard at the start of this curb, get it down to third gear, get off the brakes, and then be patient with your throttle. So we brake at the start of the curb and we brake hard. We get it down to third gear, and then as we get close to this AstroTurf on the left hand side, we're going to start turning in. We're now off throttle at this point because we have to be patient. You have to be careful. You have to make sure that your car can turn in and reach the apex of the corner. As we get around about halfway around this corner, you should know whether you're going to make the exit or not. If you are, you can get back on the throttle, which hopefully we will see on my rev counter in a moment, although I know I don't accelerate a lot around here. So now we are back on the throttle. Now, that point when you go back on throttle, you're just going to have to work out for yourself, because there isn't anything on the track where I can say at this point, go for it. And the reason for that is because it will all depend on your entry. But be patient, be careful, and when you do get on the throttle, don't go full throttle, because it's so easy to lose the rear end of the car here. Let the car run out wide, but try not getting up on this curb. It has got a tendency to spin you, although as you can see it's got quite a nice slant on it, so using a bit of it is not a problem. Okay, we'll go through that at full speed, and then we won't linger on this corner anymore. So, approaching 6th gear, hard on the brakes, listen to the throttle. So we're gently easing it in, then up to 4th. And now, a corner that I really do like, although it has a tendency to slap me in the face as well as other people at times, can be a right evil little corner. But again, it's got a very simple process, and this is a corner where you have to be brave. And the reason for that is the turn-in point seems to be way too soon. But if you practice what I'm about to tell you, you'll realise, oh yeah, that worked. And then every single time you go a little bit further, you won't make the corner. And you'll realise that what I'm saying is right. So, excuse me, still got me festive cold. Although most of you probably aren't going to watch this for another couple of months, so yeah, that won't make much sense. I'm recording this on New Year's Day. I've managed to whack a few out. Race video, track guides, that is, nothing else, you dirty sods. Right, so yeah, New Year's Day I'm spending recording this, so there we go. Right, your process for this corner, dead simple. You got the start of this curb, you want to work your way over towards it, and then when you get to that curb, simple process, ease off and turn in at exactly the same point. Now, I'm a little out of practice, so what I've been tending to do on this video is turning in and then easing off. I need myself to get into that process of ease off, turn in. And the reason you want to do it ease off, turn in is then because once you've got it turned in, you can go flat on the throttle. If you turn in, then ease off, it's harder to get back on the throttle. So I'm going to play it at full speed. Not too bad, you might think. However, still not quite perfect. Not overly happy with how I got around this corner for one simple reason. It's the ease off after I turn in. Okay, so as we approach the curb, you can see we're now steering, and yes, okay, we are facing in that direction, so you may think I've got to steer just to get straight, but it's going to be one nice long turn. We start steering, we do an ease off, and at this point it's difficult to tell whether you're going to make the corner or not. If I'd have done the ease off before I turned in, then I would have made it simple. And the way to know if you're going to miss it or not is because you want to have two wheels on this curb. It helps you round the corner. It's the faster way. So once you've got it turned in and you're at about this point, in an ideal world, you want to be flat on the throttle. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but trust me, you want to be accelerating through this corner, not out of this corner or on the exit of the corner. So at this point we want to be on the throttle again. Get two wheels on this curb nicely here. Okay, I've clipped it a little bit, but I want more of the corner to help me round it. Then on the exit, don't be afraid to let go of that steering quite early so that you can get full power on. And we don't need to be running wide here. By doing my process of the ease off turn in at the start of the curb, you'll never run wide. Well, you might if you don't turn in enough, but you'll know, ease off, turn in. Have I clipped the curb? No. Okay, I might need to ease off a bit more, or downshift, or turn a bit. You can respond. So by the apex curb, you'll know whether you're going to be running wide here or not. Once you're in this position, full throttle. Be aggressive on the exit and drive hard. Now we're into Pouhon. A brilliant corner. A brilliant corner. And in some ways, I'm tempted not to tell you what my trick is for around here, but I'm going to, because I'm not evil like that. Believe it or not, you don't have to brake for this corner. If you saw my track guide from last season, then you'll know that I am correct, that you don't need to brake here. If you are braking here, well, that's probably why you're losing a bit of time. If you are on automatic gears, you are going to need a big ease off to make this corner work, or you may need to dab a brake to get it to go down a gear. My process, absolutely flat out, knock it down to 6th gear and we turn in for the corner. Don't believe me? Well, here we go. And then back up to 7th. Easy, absolute doddle. Now there is a couple of ways that you can do this particular corner. One of them is stay in 7th gear, do an ease off and turn in, or do what I've done here, flat out, downshift, turn in, without an ease off. The downshift tends to be the quicker one, as long as you can remember to stay flat out on the throttle. If you find you're lifting anyway, doing the downshift to 6th, you may be better off not downshifting and just doing an ease off. However, I find it a bit harder to regulate the speed just by doing an ease off. It's much easier knowing that if I stay flat out and do a downshift, it's going to slow me down enough to make the corner. So what do we do where? Well, it's quite simple. We head straight past the 50-metre marker board towards the end of this curb, and as we get to the end of the curb, and you see we're just before it, we can start turning in. We've now also done the downshift, so by the end of the curb we've done the downshift and we're starting to turn in. Now we do want to apex this corner quite early. You can see we've got quite a lot of steering going on because we do want to apex the corner just after the curb there. Okay, yes, I've used a little bit of grass, but it doesn't hurt you, so it's fine. Now as we're going round the corner, you may just be able to see down here, mid-corner speed 173 mile an hour, and that's not too bad. We're now back up into 7th gear already to drive away. Now some of you may wonder why I knocked it down to 6th or to go straight back up into 7th. Well, it's that little bit of engine braking, keeping the speed up, keeping the revs up, and then on the exit we can drive away. So one more time at full speed, and I will show you later on doing it in 7th with the ease off. Easy. Okay, now as we head up to the next corner, excuse me, turn 11 I'm calling it. Again, this is a corner that a lot of people struggle on. I mean, it's another sort of rhythm section of the track, but this particular corner is not a difficult one. The reason people struggle here is because they brake way too late. So I'm going to play these next two corners at full speed, and we're going to start slowing the car down at the 50-metre marker board. That is your latest point. In races, you may even have to do it a tiny little bit beforehand. So at the 50. Get it onto the apex curb, ease off, oh no, sorry, it's on 2013, you had to do the ease off mid-corner. On this version it's slightly different, so we'll carry on. Still in 4th, holding 4th, then up to 5th and we can drive away. The reason I got myself confused there is because there was a specific rhythm for these two corners on 2013, but because of the lack of grip in these cars, the rhythm is slightly different on 2014, and some people may have found this out if they're trying to do what I was doing last year. Okay, so as we approach the corner, I've already mentioned 50-metre marker board, and if it happens to not be there, someone's wiped it out, the start of the concrete. This is your braking point. Now you don't really have to brake hard, but get your downshifts done nice and early. Down to 4th gear. As we approach the curb we can start turning in, and then it's all about making sure we get on this apex curb. So not hardly any throttle at this point, just to make sure we can get it turned in on this apex curb. It'll help us round the corner. Now as we are exiting this curb, we can start getting back on the throttle. I mean, I'm holding the throttle on all the time anyway, but we can just apply a little bit more. Okay, on 2013, once you were in this point, you would have given it an ease off, back on the throttle, up to 5th, nice and well, it would have been up to 4th on 2013, and hammer it round this corner. However, because of the grip levels on these cars and because we're already in 4th gear, it doesn't like going up to 5th too soon, and the reason for that is if we do, we're going to run wide. So instead, carry the speed, hold 4th gear, and again turn in nice and early-ish, and we want to use the apex curb. We could have changed up to 5th at this point when the lights go blue, just there, but if we do, we're gonna run wide. So this is what I'm on about, holding 4th gear. Carry the speed through the corner, and then once we're in a position where we know we're going to exit okay and we can really put the power down, which is at this point, I know by now we're going to make the exit okay. We can get the power on, we can get it up to 5th gear, and we can power out of the corner. So again, very simple process that can gain you quite a bit of time. So full speed, 50 metres, listen to the throttle. Carrying the speed, 5th, power on. I'm going to play full speed through this corner. Tricky right-hander, very easy to get it wrong. And this again is a corner where really you don't have to brake for this one. I've put my best lap time in so far, and I gained, what, 3 and a bit tenths of a second in this corner by not braking. Now it was tricky to do because I've been braking a little bit, and the reason it's tricky to do is because usually I would say we approach the corner, and then as we get to this curb on the left hand side, you do your slowing down of the car. Now you see we're just before the curb and I've done a downshift. I'm not on the brakes. I'm going to give it a slight dab of brake, but the reason doing it no brakes is a little harder is because to make it work I would have had to have downshifted a few meters before and then downshifted again to third and just used purely engine braking. But it can be a little tricky to do. To get into that rhythm of doing that so early can get very tricky to do. So anyway, the other way to do it, which is the very simple way, is once we get to this position, we downshift the gear to fourth, we give it the slightest touch of the brakes, we downshift it to third. And the reason I say give it the slightest touch of the brakes is because if you don't slow the car down enough, you'll end up running wide. We're using all of the road again. Now, turning point is the next tricky bit for this corner, and there isn't really many markings or anything around here to say turning at this point. So what I'm going to pick out for you is we've got the curb here. Now at the end of the curb sort of goes in line with where this yellow wall and red wall join. So your turning point is at the start of this yellow wall where it's about to go out of your screen. So as we approach the corner, we start turning in, and this is it's a pain in the backside corner because ideally you want to use a bit of the apex curb, but if your car's not set up right, you'll spin when you touch the apex curb. The safe ground is doing what I'm doing here, just slightly touching the curb. It helps you around the corner, and then we can get on the power nice and early, nice and hard. We can let the car run out wide a little bit, it's not a problem, but you do need a car that's set up will allow you to ride the curbs. At this point I could easily try and whip my car off this curb, but if I do, it's probably going to spin me, so I'm going to let it ride it out all the way. And keep it straight, it's easier that way. Okay, so full speed, and then we're only a corner or two away from the quicker laps. And again, this is a corner you need to carry the speed. This next one, absolutely flat out. Don't run wide though, because you will end up in trouble. Again, this next kink coming up, easily flat out. Straight lines again down here is going to carry the speed for you. This corner, easy flat out. You don't need much steering. Should not be running wide either. And then we're into the last chicane, known as the bus stop, but it ain't the bus stop like it used to be. Okay, your process for this last chicane, very, very simple. 100 metre marker board just here, and brake as hard as you can. Once you're down in about fourth, third gear, you need to be letting off the brakes a bit, but from the 100 metre marker board onwards, brake it hard. And I mean hard. And we have to be patient through the corners because this exit is very, very slippy. Okay, I'll give you my tips now for this corner, or these corners. I mean, they're very, very easy again to get these corners wrong. Okay, so we're hard on the brakes at this point. We're getting it down the gears as quick as we can to help out with the braking. And now it's down to turn in point. Well, on 2013's track guide I mentioned about this little bump in the curb here. You can just about see it, that something's not right on this curb. If you can't see it when you're practicing your laps around here, have a look for it, because now that I've pointed it out, you'll see, oh yeah, there's a dip. That's your turn in point. So brake it hard, brake it in a straight line, use all of the road. This is the dip just approaching now, and as we get over it, we can start turning in. Now these two corners, you have a choice, avoid the curbs or use the curbs. I personally like to try and use them, and the reason being, I want to get on this curb and keep a nice tight exit. I want to sacrifice the exit so that I can get over here in a nice straight line just about this point. Ideally, perfect world, nose here instead on the racing line. Now this next corner I do get slightly wrong, and it's by fine margins again. And the reason for that is your turn in point for the final corner is this white line. And I turn in a little bit before it, which means on the exit of the corner I have a tank slapper. So let's watch that. So I'm turning in now, but I needed to wait for the white line. It would have given me a much better line through this corner. I'm still going to make it onto this curb, but I'm going to take too much. And I don't really want to be approaching it at this angle. I want to be a little further in this direction, which a slightly wider entry in a later turn in would have given me. This curb can have a tendency to push you out wide, which is exactly what it's just done for me. So I've now got to be careful or patient on the throttle. But the problem is, the exit of this corner is somewhere you don't want to be patient. And you don't want to be cautious, not too much anyway. You want to be aggressive. You want to get on the power. Here comes the big wheel spin and oversteer moment. Okay, it might not look big, but it is. So not done ideally perfectly. See, the trick to this corner, had I taken the right line, then by this point I'd be able to accelerate a little bit, then as the steering wheel comes off, at this point I'd have been full throttle driving away no problem, which hopefully we'll see done correctly on a later lap. Okay, so full speed, and then we're on to the flicking through the faster laps. You'll see not too much throttle used mid-corner there either. Okay, now we're on to the being off the racing line. No, we're not. Late brakes. So what happens if you ignore everything that I've just said for the last 35 minutes? You're not going to make the corners. Now, we mentioned in the guide lap about mid-corner speed here. I've just knocked it up to 8th gear. Speedo 192 mile an hour. We've entered at the same speed, but watch what happens to the speedo. 191, 190, 189. We've even ran wide. 188. So our slowest speed through that corner is 188. At the top of the hill. Now, okay, it's only 2 mile an hour, but the effect that has is massive, because now, instead of getting to the DRS point just up here at 195 mile an hour, changing into 8th gear and flying down the straight, we're not going to be at 195 at the DRS point. Okay, full speed. We'll carry on. So, we've upshifted, we've ran wide a little bit, but now the car's not really accelerating much. 194 at the DRS. Okay, what happens? Late braking. Let's go 50 metres ish. Yeah, you know we're not making it. I just managed to keep it on the road a little bit, but we're now not as quick through here. My bogey corner, we brake late, and that would have been gravel, so I am glad that it's not there anymore. Now, I did an ease off long time after I turned in there. This time 7th gear with an ease off, but we're going through the corner a little slower. Still an easy corner to do, but we went through it a little slow. Past the 50, and we're recovering the car. We're going too slow. We're in 3rd gear instead of 4th. Not ideal. Brake, well, I'll say brake. We slowed down too late for that one. We run wide again. We're into recovery mode. And you don't want to be in recovery mode. You want to be in flat out mode. Now, these kinks you don't need to brake for, so should never really be a problem. Easy to go side by side through there as well. Okay, last corner, 60 metres ish, and we missed the apex by a mile. Now we missed that one, and now we've got to be careful on the exit. Okay, now we're into the off the racing line. So if you're going to overtake, brake at all the previously mentioned points, the white line, but slow it down more. You're probably going to need 1st gear. Careful on the exit. A little tip though, use the DRS into turn 1 to catch up and overtake down here. No point gifting them the position. Side by side down here can be done if you give room. Pinch point on the exit though, so be careful. Yeah, there's no point overtaking someone into turn 1 if they're just going to DRS you back from down here, so think. Okay, up the inside, brake at 75. We just need to slow it down a little more. Might need 2nd, give them room on the left hand side. But now we've got a tight line through here, so we're slow in 3rd instead of fast in 4th. Bogey corner again, tighter line, again down an additional gear, second, still be careful on the exit. Up the inside here, it's tricky, we have to use third gear and it's a pinch point on the exit. Poo-on can be done up the inside, get down 2 gears. But again, be careful of running wide. If there's a car there, you don't want to be hitting them. Up the inside here, careful, it's slippy and easy to run straight on. Getting it down to third works. If we're wide around here though, very, very careful. Up the inside here, it's not a nice overtaking place, very slippy as well. Round the outside here, you don't want to do it because chances are you'll dip the gravel. Now, side by side down this section is quite often going to happen. Just give each other room. You treat it as if you've got a lane each. Stay left, turn more, you can still take it absolutely flat out, no problem. Up the inside, we know we like to do it, so let's give it a try. It can be done, and you can give room on this left-hander as well. You can still get good grip around the outside there. Okay, being back on the racing line then, so a normal proper lap if we can do it. Brake at the white line, nice and close to the apex curb, power early, extend third gear to get the most out of it. Eau Rouge, we're going to hold 7th gear, speed through the corner, 190 still, so we're 2-3 mile an hour faster, already doing 196 at the DRS line, so there's a 2 or 3 mile an hour difference there. Okay, 75 meters on the brakes, can we get on that apex curb a little bit, but get ready for 4th gear and drive through this corner, up to 5th early, and then brake it hard here, get patient, missing the apex a while, so I've got to be patient a bit more. Now the ease off and turn in, which I've still done the wrong way round, which has led me to run wide a little bit. Note to myself, I need to work on that. Downshift 6th, no ease off, up to 7th, nice and quick through that corner. Okay, do your slowing down nice and early, 50, get it slowed down, hug the inside, up to 5th and power on when we can. Don't try going too clever through that corner, it'll only backfire on you. Slower is faster through there, do it earlier. Excuse me. Okay, now we head up to the end of the lap, and I'd say it's not been a bad one. Easy flat out left-hander into the bus stop, hard on the brakes. Do we get the racing line correct this time? Oh, we've had a bit of a wiggle, but we can still carry the speed just. Okay. Now I would usually carry on and do an ETL lap with pit entry, pit exit. But on all of my laps, you don't really get much of a look at the pit entry. So what I'm going to do is I am going to now wait a moment, insert an additional clip about the pit entry, and then we'll carry on with this ETL lap. Okay, through the magic of editing, we've now obviously jumped 1/4 mile back down the track so that we can have a look at the pit entry. Now for the pit entry, as we approach the final chicane, we brake exactly the same. At the 100 metre marker board, hard on the brakes, turning at the same point, but now we're in this position, instead of letting off the steering to get ready for the final corner, we just keep it to the right hand side. Very simple, and then turn it in, easy. Now okay, yeah, you can do it a little bit faster than I've actually entered here, but I'm only doing it at this speed just to show you. It's easily done and you can do it without crashing. Those people that struggle getting in the pits correctly for Spa tends to be because they're not getting this corner right. They're going way too fast, which means that when they actually get around the exit of this corner, instead of being in this position, they're all the way over there, totally out of control, which means they've then got to cut this white bit to try and get into the pit lane. It also means that they've got too tight a corner to get around into the pit lane, and they end up crashing into the wall. So if you find that you crash into the pit wall and you struggle to make it through this part of the track, because this here is the pit entry, not the wall over there, then just brake at the 100 metre marker board for the previous corner. Get that corner right, the pit lane is easy. Okay, let's get back onto the track guide. Right, so now you've had a look at the pit entry, let's get on with the ETL and the pit exit lap. So, ETLs, exceeding track limits. We don't want to see people doing stuff like this. I said, yes, use the apex curb, but not apex in the wall. This is just taking the mickey. Hang up your gloves, give your steering wheel to someone else that will use it properly. Okay, pit exit. It's not an overly difficult one at Spa. Okay, there's half a chance you might clip a wall on the way out, but the white line here, do not cross it. This is the pit exit point itself. Very, very simple. Don't get it wrong. Okay, back to the stuff that we don't want to see people doing. I know I mentioned about doing this in straight lines, but this is slightly too straight a line. We also don't need to be cutting this bit up here. You're just trying to gain an advantage by cheating. I say on a lot of my videos, I don't like covering ETLs, but it is the most annoying thing for me, watching people cut corners and then going, I'm quick, I'm quick, I'm quick. No, you're not. You're not. I don't try and cut. I try not to call people cheats, but when they're cutting corners all over the place, it's very difficult not to just give people an absolute mouthful. At the end of the day, it's not very often that you're going to see me, well, I say not very often, you're not going to see me cutting a corner. It's just the way I am. So when I win, and I've done it legitimately, rather than by cutting corners all over the place. I mean, one of the excuses I've heard which just left me baffled was, well, I had to cut corners to keep up with the leaders. Well, no, if you were cutting corners to keep up with the leaders, then you should have just not cut corners and raced against those people that were the same speed as you. But there we go. Sometimes people are just faster. So anyway, that's the majority of exceeding track limits there. So we don't want to see people doing none of that stuff or doing what we're about to see on this last corner. Okay, I could have done it much worse and sent the car flying over the hill, but we don't really want to see people doing this. Now, okay, people may say that it doesn't gain you an advantage, or I'm not gaining time. If you've got your car set up right, I know you can go faster. So there we go anyway. Now we can have a bit of fun. It's just a shame though that these new F1 cars don't drift like the old ones did. The old ones were beautiful to drift. But that is something I would say. Don't be afraid of taking your car over the limit. Get it out of control. See how it handles. See what you need to do to recover the car. That way, if it ever happens in a race, it's automatic. You know what to do. Now, I will admit this has been quite a long track guide, but to be fair, Spa is quite a long track, so it's not really that surprising. But like I say, don't be afraid of having a bit of fun when you're practicing. Push the car beyond its limits, see what it's capable of, and see what you're capable of. Can you control a car that is fully out of control? Sometimes you may find it's actually quite good fun. Now, as I've mentioned on other videos, and I will mention again, these track guides are aimed at people that are struggling rather than those that are already quick. I have got track guides for all of the circuits up to Spa now, and I will get the last 7 done as soon as I can. Obviously I've managed to get a few done over the festive period, in the hope of getting them done nice and early before the end of our season, so I haven't got to focus on doing track guides when I'm trying to hopefully win a title. But we'll have to see how that goes, because we're in a very interesting battle in our World Championship at the moment. But anyway, as I clink a plate and slide it around the last corner, it's time for me to say, he's been Ted Craftsticks, I've been Front Row Racing DP. I hope this has helped, and thanks for watching.